Welcome. Today we'll be diving into a major topic, the possibility of a direct conflict between Iran and Israel. As tensions rise, an important question comes up. Will Iran receive support from its allies, particularly China? While it's clear that Israel has the strong backing of Western countries, especially the United States, Iran's potential alliances are not as obvious. Even though Iran has long-standing ties with China and is part of major international groups like BRICS, China's role in this situation remains uncertain. Let's explore the deeper connection between these two nations to understand what China's stance might be if a conflict breaks out. To fully grasp the bond between Iran and China, we have to go back in history. These two countries have interacted for centuries, with their earliest contacts happening through trade along the famous Silk Road. This ancient trade route connected regions from China all the way to the Mediterranean, and Iran played a vital role as a crossroads between the East and West. As goods like silk and spices flowed between the two nations, so did ideas and cultural exchanges. Persian poets often wrote about China in their verses, and similarly, Chinese records mention Persia. This peaceful relationship that began so long ago helped lay a strong foundation for the partnership we see today between these two nations. Fast forwarding to modern times, we see that China and Iran's bond grew even stronger in the 1980s during the Iran-Iraq War. From 1980 to 1988, Iran found itself isolated from much of the world, unable to buy weapons and military equipment due to international sanctions. China stepped in to help, supplying Iran with the arms it needed. This marked a turning point in their relationship, as China saw an opportunity to build closer ties with Iran while other nations kept their distance. This cooperation was more than just military support. It signaled the start of a pragmatic partnership that has been evolving ever since. Over the past few decades, the relationship between Iran and China has expanded even further. In 2016, Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Iran, and this visit paved the way for a major agreement between the two nations. In 2021, China and Iran signed a 25-year cooperation agreement that covers a wide range of areas, including trade, politics, and military cooperation. This partnership is extremely important for both countries. For China, Iran is a key supplier of oil, and its location makes it an essential part of China's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to connect Asia, Africa, and Europe through infrastructure projects. For Iran, China is a lifeline, providing economic and political support in the face of harsh sanctions from the West. China's ties with Iran also reflect a broader strategic vision. China and Iran see eye to eye on many international issues, and China has been a strong supporter of Iran's inclusion in global groups. For example, Iran was recently accepted as a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a group led by China and Russia that focuses on security and economic cooperation across Asia. Earlier this year, Iran was also admitted into BRICS, an economic group that includes major emerging economies like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These moves highlight China's desire to strengthen its alliances with countries that are looking to challenge Western dominance. A key component of China and Iran's relationship is oil. China is the largest importer of oil in the world, and Iran plays a major role in meeting China's energy needs. Despite international sanctions, Iran has managed to keep supplying China with oil. In 2023, China imported an average of 1.1 million barrels of Iranian oil per day, which is a significant increase from the previous year. Iran sells this oil at a discount, which makes it an attractive option for Chinese buyers, especially smaller refiners that are less exposed to U.S. financial systems and therefore less affected by sanctions. These refiners, often referred to as teapots, have found a way to benefit from Iran's heavily discounted oil, which has helped keep their operations running smoothly despite global economic pressures. In some months, China's imports from Iran surged even higher, reaching up to 1.5 million barrels per day, the most in a decade. For Iran, this oil trade with China is crucial. China buys about 90% of all the oil that Iran exports, making it Iran's most important customer by far. The relationship between the two nations goes beyond just economic interests. Iran's discounted oil provides China with a reliable and cheaper alternative to other suppliers like Saudi Arabia and Russia. who are also affected by geopolitical events that disrupt supply chains. Even though sanctions continue to pressure Iran, the two countries have developed creative ways to keep the oil flowing. Some of the methods they use include transferring oil between ships at sea to disguise its origin, or rebranding the oil as coming from countries like Malaysia. These tactics have allowed China and Iran to bypass sanctions and maintain their strategic partnership. China has a lot at stake in this relationship, especially when it comes to securing its energy needs. As the world's biggest importer of foreign oil, China is deeply concerned about the impact that a larger conflict in the Middle East could have on global oil prices and supply. Iran is one of the few countries that can offer oil at a lower price, and if Israel were to attack Iran's oil infrastructure, China might be forced to turn to more expensive suppliers such as Saudi Arabia. This would be a costly shift for China. Additionally, if Iran or its allies, like the Houthis in Yemen, were to disrupt critical shipping lanes like the Strait of Hormuz or the Red Sea, it could make it even harder and more expensive for China to secure the oil it needs to keep its economy running. China has enough oil in reserve to last about 3 to 4 months if imports are suddenly cut off. While oil is a significant part of its energy consumption, it doesn't play as large a role as it does in the US, where oil makes up a much bigger portion of energy use. Despite this, a major conflict in the Middle East could still disrupt China's economic interests. China has invested a great deal of money into energy and infrastructure projects in countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both key players in the region. Interestingly, China has also invested in Israel, even though it publicly supports the Palestinian cause. This shows China's balancing act between its economic goals and its political stances. With US influence in the Middle East appearing to decline, China sees a chance to step in and grow its influence. It has managed to build relationships not only with Iran, but also with countries that are often at odds with Iran, such as Saudi Arabia. These investments are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, a massive global infrastructure project aimed at expanding trade and increasing China's power worldwide. China promotes itself as a nation that doesn't interfere in other countries' internal affairs, an image that has helped it gain favor, particularly with nations in the global south that see China as a potential alternative to US dominance. However, the region remains highly unstable, and with Iran playing a central role in many of these conflicts, China's ability to influence the situation is limited. Despite this, China has tried to flex its diplomatic muscles. Earlier in the year, it helped broker a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which led to the two countries restoring diplomatic ties. In July, China hosted a meeting between the Palestinian groups Fatah and Hamas, where they agreed to cooperate in forming a unified government after the Gaza conflict. Despite these efforts, violence in the region has continued, and Israel outright rejected the idea of including Hamas in any Palestinian government. Although China's trade with Iran gives it some leverage, it seems that China prefers to sit back and benefit from the US being preoccupied with other global issues, rather than trying to control Iran's behavior. A distracted US, busy with conflicts in places like Ukraine and the Middle East, might have less time and energy to challenge China over sensitive issues like Taiwan or disputes in the South China Sea. Still, China has no interest in further escalating conflicts. Its military ties with Iran remain limited, with only minor joint drills and symbolic gestures. There were reports that China might have provided satellite technology to assist Iran's missile program, but that's about the extent of their cooperation. Overall, China has kept a careful distance when it comes to getting more deeply involved in Iran's military matters. China has talked about investing as much as $400 billion in Iran over the next 25 years, but so far it has been hesitant to commit to such a large investment. This contrasts with the importance China places on its relationships with other countries like Russia and North Korea, both of which share borders with China and act as buffers against US influence. But even with Russia and North Korea, China remains cautious. While China supports Russia's defense industry, it has stopped short of supplying weapons for Russia's war in Ukraine. China has also voiced its opposition to Russia's threats to use nuclear weapons. Regarding North Korea, China did not stop it from developing nuclear weapons, but it has expressed its displeasure and may also disapprove of the recent defense pact signed between North Korea and Russia. The increasing instability in the Middle East presents a problem for China, which has tried to maintain a delicate balance in its relationships with countries in the region. Recently, tensions have escalated, with Iran launching missiles at Israel in early October, and Israel continuing its strikes against Iranian-backed groups in Gaza and Lebanon. This situation is worrying for China, which has built relationships with countries that are often referred to as the axis of upheaval or the quartet of chaos. This group includes Iran, North Korea, and Russia, countries that share a common goal of challenging the US-led global order and sometimes collaborate on security matters behind the scenes. Despite China's tough stance on issues like Taiwan, it does not seem eager for direct conflict. China uses its allies in this group to push back against US influence, but it remains cautious and avoids taking the same kinds of risks that these allies are willing to take. In the Middle East, China has no desire to get entangled in the region's ongoing conflicts. Even if a full-scale war breaks out between Iran and Israel, China is likely to stay on the sidelines, hoping that its economic interests remain intact and that the chaos does not affect its investments in the region. Previously, we explored the possibility of Russia supporting Iran in a potential conflict with Israel. To briefly summarize, while Russia is unlikely to provide direct military aid to Iran, their relationship has grown significantly stronger since 2022. In the past, Iran relied on Russia for military support, but now, following Russia's isolation due to its invasion of Ukraine, the roles have reversed. Iran has begun supplying Russia with key military equipment, such as drones and missiles, turning the partnership into one where Iran provides more direct military assistance. Today, their partnership goes beyond just military cooperation and extends into economic and technological fields, especially in ways that help both countries evade Western sanctions. Although they share a common interest in opposing Western influence, Russia's focus remains on its own pressing concerns, like the war in Ukraine and maintaining key regional alliances, including its ties with Israel. While Russia has provided Iran with advanced military equipment, like the S-400 missile defense system, it is unlikely to become directly involved in a potential Iran-Israel war. Instead, Russia's support for Iran would likely remain indirect, with arms sales and diplomatic backing being more realistic. This way, Russia can continue to strengthen its ties with Iran without risking direct involvement in the conflict. That wraps up our video for today. We appreciate you watching and thank you for your support. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Your support really means a lot to us. You can also check out another video from our channel, which should be appearing on your screen now.